I'm late by a few minutes because I was told that the guests had not yet arrived. So I said when they arrive, let me know, and that's the time I took. Please.
So today for this session we have got a panel of 5 people, 5 guests. First is Mr. Brian Chambers and his wife, together husband and wife.
First is his wife and then
his wife. Yeah, that's
right. They swap places. So.
Yes, so that's just change the sheet, yes. And next is Miss Sarah Ward, daughter of Miss Nasser Ward.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And next is Miss Laura Bartholomew. She's a nurse in
Have you met before?
No,
no,
no.
And then Mr. Clem Edward.
Yes. Of course.
She's
the Clem Edward.
Yes.
Huh?
You're the.
Yes.
Normally Edwards, but there's 2 Clems, eh?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, please ask the first question.
I've had breast cancer for some years.
Could you please introduce yourself first?
Oh yes, I'm Lynn Chambers.
From?
Purley.
Purley.
And I used to be a medical secretary, so this is a sort of medical question, but
yes,
it's to do with my having had breast cancer for some years. And
when
I
did you
had
have it?
1994, and since then. Yeah.
Was it operated upon, or?
I've had 3 lumpectomies.
Were you treated chemotherapy? Chemotherapy?
Yes, and
right.
radiation.
And radiation as well.
And,
but
and
no surgical operation?
Yes, 3.
3, one after the other?
Yes.
And the lump kept growing again? Is that right?
I believe it was a recurrence, but it's called DCSI. It's not quite the same as the original. Each time I think it's slightly different, but
you do not appear to be as ill as you are describing it.
No, I've recovered tremendously.
Must have recovered tremendously.
Yes, I mean I have a remarkable recovery.
Have you ever had homeopathy?
No, that was one of my questions, but the other question was to do with faith healing. I have read that perhaps healing could help me.
If the patients have already been treated by the traditional practitioners in the traditional way of chemotherapy, surgical operations and things like that, the homeopathy has less chance of working in such cases, because the reaction reacts against the knife of the surgeon. Also, through chemotherapy, the tissues which lead to the cancer are themselves damaged. So a sort of barrier is created between the cancer cells and the natural body reaction against the presence of cancer. This is what we have observed homeopathically, which some oncologists accept as true. Some others say no, it's just your impression of things. But I have spoken to some experts on cancer diseases, cancerous diseases from America, and they agree fully with me that this is exactly what happens. In fact, the cancer throws its buds even before the chemotherapy begins. It realizes that something is happening to me. Some doctors have discovered that cancer does not throw its buds, but it has already thrown its buds all across the body. But there is a chemical released from the cancer cells which suppress the growth of all other children of cancer, which remain everywhere like a seedling, but they do not grow. Like under the growth of a big tree, small roots are not permitted to grow and flourish. So they say this is their realization, and they have some evidence to produce as well. That the cancer cells are already spread out throughout the body, whereas it should be remembered that every cancer has its own specific areas where it can have its secondaries. All cancers do not have their secondaries everywhere. But those cancers who have their secondaries in some areas, before you begin to treat them, they already send out, or they have already sent out, their small seedlings. But they suppress them. The moment you try to suppress the main body of the cancer, then that chemical which works as suppressor is no longer released. And then the cancer permits, as if it has a mind and it has a decision-making authority, it permits its offsprings to go and flourish wherever they are. No more interference. Now, this proves not the homeopathic theory. I'm sorry, I'm not very careful with my eating habits, so sometimes you see these things. I don't mind because I know I have to live with this. So, the cancer behaves in a manner which cannot be explained by medical practitioners. Even the top oncologists know that it happens, but do not know why it so happens. You know, the methodology, the reasons why a cell in the body should behave in this manner, as if it has its own brain, its own colony, its own associations with things, and would not like to be disturbed. Now, here I have got a spiritual theory which is not, strictly speaking, homeopathic theory. I believe, and I can connect it with medical evidence later on, I believe that the cancer is a sort of rebellion. A rebellion against something. This could be explained in two ways. When a system of medicine continues to attack the source of disease itself, it cures it without the help of natural defenses. Like every time a child has to cross a hurdle, you pick the child up and put him across. So his ability to jump will be adversely affected. So one theory which I have proposed is this, that whenever human reactions should be invited to take part in the curing process, and there is some stir among them, but they are not invited to take part, you attack the disease directly. Then they stirred and then calm down, then they stirred and they calm down, with the result that after a few calls, like the wolf, has attacked, people don't believe. Similarly, the system is frustrated and it does not believe that really we are needed. Again, like you cannot attribute consciousness to cancer, but it behaves as if it is conscious. Similarly, the human defense system behaves as though it were conscious. And this is 100% correct. It always behaves as if it were conscious, and some inner indescribable mind is provided to the system by Allah, by God, which we cannot discern clearly, but it acts as if it had a mind. Now, from that stage onward, what happens is that a disease is cured at some level of the body, but the will to fight a disease is also destroyed. So the diseases sink deeper and deeper, always to the more vital organs, to escape the outer attack of the traditional systems. And whenever they are cured, so-called cured, from one level, they sink into the low level until they reach a level of decision making on the part of the human system where it says no more. The cells are told to do whatever they like. Now this theory has been investigated without, in this form, without realizing the form of theory I am presenting, in a different way by the researchers. They tell us that every cell of the body could be cancerous and always tends to be cancerous. But there is a counter system within the body which suppresses it and keeps it in its place. So there does not have to be a special cell of cancer. Every cell could be turned into a cancer cell. Now they prove it by a normal common phenomenon which everybody knows, that our teeth grow at a rate where they do not outgrow their designed size, and they're always checked in place. Otherwise their cells are ordered by nature to grow on, and they continue to grow. And this happens with every organ of human body. What keeps it in check? That counter potential of the body to tell the teeth, enough is enough now. See, you're growing faster than at the rate that you're being destroyed by natural forces. So stop here. Now if the teeth do not accept this message, that is exactly the cancer of the teeth. The teeth can grow out of your skull if permitted to grow indefinitely, you know. So this is what I wanted you to understand about the cancer and homeopathy and everything. You should fully realize what's happening in your system. Another theory which I have, which I'm offering to you without you asking for it, is a theory which is entirely religious. I believe that when the age continues to sin against God without realizing what they are doing, that again is a sort of rebellion. So that rebellion is somehow affects the human system, and the human body also begins to rebel against the internal forces which keep it in check. And it's amazing how these two things tally. In religious law, the only difference is that you are permitted to transgress if you so desire. But if you fully stick to it, it could create heaven on earth. Everybody would be placed in its right order and right place and where it should belong, and with all the rights and obligations. So that is a healthy system. When in religion there is no health left, and practically cancer grows, because diseases, spiritual diseases become so ominous that they grow like cancer without any check. So Allah teaches us the lesson that you can be revenged against this tendency within your body as well. If your physical phenomenon, which is provided by Allah to take care of all these balances, is left alone by God, then it will behave exactly as you are behaving in your relationship to the laws of God. So this is my personal theory, which of course the medical practitioners cannot check either way. So here I end my so-called, hope it's not a sermon, it's an assessment of what happens. Now I can give you some medicine, of course, and you better see to it that whatever treatment I offer in such cases is offered her with a little suchi booty as well, which is a herbal treatment, which is again revealed through a vision to a gentleman in Pakistan, India. So this works very well. Even the United Nations the organization has checked it, and they found that it is not a myth, it does work. So that Suchi Booty packets I also found in my office.
Right on.
You
We're finished working.
you contact Salim,
Gee.
and he will give you my treatment after the operation has been carried out.
Okay.
And this treatment. And I hope for the best in her case, particularly because she looks healthy, mashallah.
Marvellous.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah, better than I feel.
And he's your husband, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
And he's happy with your progress and everything.
Yes, well, it's helped me immensely with meditation and
Right.
books and reading.
Now, shall we turn to you for your question?
Yes, Your Holiness. I'm concerned about,
But would you introduce yourself?
yes, it's Brian Chambers
From?
from Purley. I'm concerned about the pollution that mankind is
Right.
bringing about. My question is, what should world governments, how should world governments respond to the threat of global warming?
Global warming, for
Yes.
which they are themselves responsible.
Yes, it's,
How can they respond to whatever they are responsible for?
well, they're responsible for allowing the progress of manufacturing industries that are generating a great deal of pollution in one form or another, either
You see,
chemical pollution.
The lifestyle of the present age has become extremely onerous. You have to keep it going by producing pollution. In many areas of production, if the industrial requirements are checked in detail, you will be surprised to learn that most of the things the modern life demands are produced by such industry which creates pollution. And the economic struggle between nations and nations does not permit the governments to take action against such things. Because whatever they produce, it earns money. And money not only from the local people, but also from by exporting them across the world at large. So I have gone through this problem. I think we should not discuss this in detail here, but before this, I have discussed this problem in every detail in Germany, for instance, where some experts came to meet me and required me to answer this particular question as best as I could. And the way I enlarged it, to begin with, they thought that I was going off the mark, in a different direction. But when I connected it later on, I was so happy to see that they were convinced, and they thought that this is a fight which we have almost lost. But what would happen by the global warming, and how long will it take place? That again is a question, and how to counter it is also another question which is being contemplated by the world governments and experts. So they may come to the help of those who suffer from the presence of pollution, but not quickly, not soon enough. I have estimated that they may take measures much after the time when they were required, because these measures which influence environment are very slow moving. You have to start them, push them on at least 30-40 years before they would be able to mature. So things are not at all happy. I am not happy with what's happening, unfortunately, in the world, because economy, national interests, etc., and the artificial way of life They've all colluded together to create this problem. Sarah, what have you to say?
Well, one of my questions was about the Gulf War, well, the situation in the Gulf, because I've lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, and the effects of the war in the 1990s are still felt then. And do you think it's likely that the situation now will begin in war again? And if so,
Why should it erupt into a war? This is the question.
I think that the situation
Whom
is...
does Iraq hurt so much that they have to go on killing Iraqi people and destroy Iraqi economy? That is the question. You must first determine the culprit, who it is. There are so many countries of the world which, we do not pay the least attention to United Nations decisions. There are 42 such decisions which Israel has refused to accept. Repeatedly, the full House of the United Nations have condemned Israeli obstruction to the passage of these decisions to be implemented. But what happens? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. But here is something happening somewhere which does not hurt American interests at all. The case they build against Iraq is always proved to be false after the destruction is over. The long gun, you see, you remember? The long gun which could fire across to the American continent and all that. This was all entirely built up with the help of the British government, who knew what was happening. They earned money out of that by exporting the barrels, etc. But they knew this is just a story, not a story, but a madman's fancy to build such a thing. While the most important components were still withheld by the British, which could have worked, if at all, in building such a gun. But why could not these advanced nations build their guns themselves to counter Iraq? They were supplying them some parts, some iron barrels, and they knew all the know-how how to build the barrels, but the Iraqis could not even build the barrels. While there was so much of sophisticated mechanism which had to be known and which was kept or withheld by the advanced nations. So instead of making a hue and cry against a barrel which is being created, which will create a gun at last, which will bombard America or Israel, why did they not make counter invasion of Iraq by creating such guns and providing Israel with those guns? So it was entirely a game, an exercise in deceiving people. And after it was over, then I have seen programs on the British television. They were all laughing at it, laughing at the whole idea of the gun being produced and it's being so sinister in its effects. So they do it, and they are again doing things that Iraq is doing this and that. How long should a country suffer for things which are unjustly imposed on it by United Nations, which has no right to interfere with the internal affairs of people, things? If it had gone wrong, you catch him while it went wrong. You had every ability to punish it, but only when it went wrong, not anticipating the possibilities of a growing power, which, if you accept all of it, still is not a threat to the peace of anything, a threat to the peace of any country. Iraq, if given full time to develop, can hardly create an atomic bomb, while all the atomic potential of the world will be directed against Iraq before it had time to trigger it off, entire Iraq could be wiped out 100 times before this time, before this may happen. In fact, the whole world can be destroyed hundreds of times over if the atomic potential of the world powers is utilized to do this. Now, in the same general area of Iraq, Israel, etc., Israel has that potential, and it has been begging to be able to destroy the entire atomic potential of Russia. And Iraq is not, if it can produce, is not permitted to produce a single weapon. All this is a game, a fake thing. The fact is that they have noticed that in the middle of the Muslim world there is a country which has potential strength to grow big. And if it grows big, ultimately it may not be possible, may not remain possible for Israel to do whatever she likes. This is the only objective. They don't want to have it happen. To remove Saddam is no problem. But the problem is that he may be removed. He may die. This is what worries them. I think they're taking full care of his health as well. Saddam Hussein is a boon to the Americans and the Jewish people. With a special type of head, which has to be examined, of course. He has been doing things against the interests of his own country, while if he had kept quiet, he could have go on growing from strength to strength, and nobody could have any excuse to interfere. So that is why I say, I beg pardon from Mr. Saddam Hussein, that he also has to be have his head examined. Because he's moving against the interest of his own country. And the Western powers, particularly America, are enjoying it thoroughly. Right?
Yes.
Yes. Next.
I'm Lorna Bartholomew, and I'm a nursing sister.
Beg your pardon?
Lorna Bartholomew. I'm a nursing sister. Most religions in the West are accepted by the people of the West, but for some reason Islam seems to have a very bad press. Why is this?
Very bad what?
Very bad press.
Bad place.
Bad press.
Press. Place assigned to Islam by the Western people.
Yes.
Correct?
No, press, I think you said
Press.
tabloid press.
Tabloid press, yes.
Whatever
media-
the press...
The media doesn't like
No,
it.
the media also does it
Yeah.
in a different manner, in a more graceful manner, and sometimes even more hurtingly. The history of this attitude goes back to the time of Saladin.
Crusades.
Yes, Crusades. During that period, it was Saladin who stood like a stone wall between the growth of the West across into the area where oil was discovered later on. And the military powers, the military mights of the West. Britain also suffered heavy defeats at the hands of Saladin during the time of King Richmond?
Richard II.
King Richard
Richard
III, or second? Second, King Richard III, second. Now, all the history of that area, all the history of that period, has been throughout suppressed and distorted, particularly by the British people. Only in the recent past, some mad companies, bad from a British point of view, have started revealing the history on some television and telling the world that throughout that period our behavior has been so cruel, so immoral, so unchristian, and sometimes so beastly, that the people whom we gave quarters ourselves on the condition that nothing will happen to you, we slaughtered each one of them, even to the detail of small children suckling babies. If you had seen that series of films, it was in fact a shuddering thing for the whole soul to be shattered in the values which people sing about, and exactly the opposite exists. So it is no blame. I don't blame the British people of today for the history of the past few hundred years, but I blame the politicians for behaving in the same manner today, but subtly so. They are afraid of a rise of a sensible power in the Middle Eastern countries, etc., which should be sensible so that they cannot touch it. They enjoy the fools. They like the fools to ride the economy and the politics of the Muslim countries, so that their foolishness is used against themselves. They like the medievalists to command the affairs of their country, so that they can show you, look here, this is there, this is Khomeini, this is this, this is that. And they do not want sensible people to rise to power. And I have experienced it myself. I have learnt it the bitter way. During the noise about Salman Rushdie, I called a press conference. It was so well attended that all the national media and all the small regional media were present from different parts of the world, of the United States. It was in a big hotel, a big hall. Everybody participated with such enthusiasm and so on and so forth. I convinced them of the wrong attitude which the British government is taking towards Salman Rushdie. He should have been condemned, at least for the indecency, which they never did. But the wrong attitude of other Muslim governments towards him, which we also condemn as wrong, it was highlighted as if this was Islam. And Islam stands for burning the books, Islam does this and does that. And the entire media was after Islam. While what I did there in 2 or 3 hours time, I proved to them that it was not Islam at work. I proved to them that during Isabella and Ferdinand's time, if Islam is at work today, then you should accept that Christianity was at work during the time of Ferdinand and Isabella. It was Christianity of that period which was responsible for the heinous crimes against humanity. I don't accept it, I told them. Would you accept? They said no. So why do you accept that Khomeini's misbehavior and stupidity should be blemished on Islam? This is Islam, this is the Holy Quran. The nutshell of that is that you can condemn indecency, but you cannot condemn indecent to death. They're two different things. Now, the whole hall repeatedly expressed their open agreement with what I said. But in the end, I said something which dampened them. I said, thank you so much for agreeing with everything which I say. But in tomorrow's press, there will be no mention of this. You want violent answers. You want a religious medievalist instead of me to answer these questions and accept all the responsibility of stupid, mad behavior in religion, of taking hold of other people's laws and permitting murder of people, not in their own territory but across into another political territory. Where does Islam or any religion or any common sense permit you to do this? But if I had said that, then my picture will be flashed on the first pages and the whole paper will be full of this. So tomorrow you will see. And who was the gentleman who was so friendly to us, Mr. of the New York Times, or Sunday Times?
Mr. Mortimer? Yes.
Mr. Mortimer was present, so he was so embarrassed by this challenge that he put a small print line, printed a small print line and said, this is what he said. Very, very little reference. The entire media was silent, completely silent. So they are not so ethical as you believe they are. The media is governed by the people who own the media. And they are always motivated by things which are not right, which are not honest, which are not ethical or moral. That is the main problem you are suffering from today. Right? Yes. Thank you. Anything else?
I've just a quick question on ballots and show of hands coming into voting for council elections in the new year. And I was unaware of the fact that whenever we came for meetings at the mosque, it's show of hands, I vote for this man, I vote for that man. And I wondered how that came about, because obviously in English society 150 years ago, the squire would go with a gun and say, right, who's voting for me? So they put this secret ballot so that people
that is the main reason of destruction of your politics. If right from the beginning, everyone was compelled to have courage in support of the principles he holds, then today the political life could not have been corrupted so much as you see today. So when you raise your hand, everybody watches it. And everybody should watch it. You should have the courage and honesty to tell the whole world what you stand for. Now this is essential in Ahmadiyya Jamaat, our elections, right from the beginning at the grassroots level up to the last level of the election of caliphate. Everyone who is in a meeting must raise his hand to be seen, to be known that he supports these ideas. And this has created a very healthy democratic system in our Jamaat universally, which is unbeatable, which is incomparable as in relation to the rest of the so-called democratic systems.
I mean, a question that I have is that in the old times, the Holy Prophet it's obviously a similar thing that
exactly.
But were there times when there was, I suppose it's the Muslims were courageous to say, put the hand up whether they die or not, doesn't matter. But
no, but that time never came, because the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the real time of a religious democracy, which was mandated with an authority, divine authority from on high. I don't want to open this subject because it is a very long subject to be discussed, but this did not leave behind a system of democratic practices in Islamic countries. It left behind a system of monarchy, and the monarchy never wanted to ask opinions of the public and people. So this system was never checked, never given a chance to flourish.
Right.
The modern system of democracy does not have its roots in Islam. It has its roots in the distorted democracy which exists today. And the Muslim countries are so confused about what the Islamic system is, that each has his own, each country has its own views. And there is no unity on the basic question of what sort of government Islam requires you to have. So this is a very problematic question, which I think I have attended before in some detail during some of these sittings. So if anyone would be interested, if you are interested in finding more about it, then you can write to the department to send you the audio or video recordings of my sessions, mainly addressing this question.
Thank you.
Right?
As Muslims, how do you see Jesus Christ? I
yes.
need clarification because I forget.
As a Muslim, we do not see Jesus Christ, but we see all the religious heads of the entire world religions exactly in the same light. You see, Jesus Christ should not be separated from the community of religions to be presented to the world as a person who was born in Palestine and who, as if he were the only model given by God to the whole of the world. If that is so, then the truth of Jesus Christ is also jeopardized, and the truth of God he worshipped is also jeopardized. Because the God he presented is universal. This is essential. While Christianity has no reference to any other prophets appearing anywhere else who are truly divine messengers. So how could Christianity be universal? When, particularly, for example, you have to call Prophet Muhammad a liar if you are true Christian. It is your decency which prevents you to do this, not Christianity. If you are a true believer in Christ, you must reject Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But not only him, you must also reject Krishna. You must also reject Buddha. You must also reject Confucius. You cannot remain a Christian by believing in the divine authenticity or divine representation of all these prophets of God which I have mentioned from all over the world. If you think that they do not exist, they are just the pseudo gods they are just the pseudo gods which are presented by their own followers, and they did not exist as realities, then again a strange vacuum will be created in the whole world. Where are those who were created by God if Krishna was not a representative of him? If Buddha had nothing to do with God, show us who was a godly person born in the time of Buddha, born at the time of Confucius, born at the time of Krishna. So we reject them all as pseudo-gods, and what we are left with? Nothing. So what sort of God that is? Who does not take care of his own creation all over the world, and who has not revealed to the people before Jesus Christ that you cannot be pardoned unless someone else takes your sins upon himself. Not a single, the slightest reference is found in the period prior to Jesus Christ in the old Bible or any other religious work. So what sort of universal Savior is created about whose advent no one is informed by God? And if he holds that importance, more so it was important that he should be introduced by God all over the world, and people should be awaiting such a savior. No one can point his finger at a single incident of the rest of the world where it happens to be so. Now, to ingest the question into the answer into a smaller space, I can make easy for you to understand the problem. If anybody in the world, anywhere, has to accept Jesus Christ, what sacrifice he has to offer? He has to call his own erstwhile true prophet or God, whatever he considers him, to be absolutely false. He has to uproot himself from the religion which nourished him and reject that religion. In Islam, that is the universality of Islam, which is so different from the present concept of Christianity. If we believe in Jesus Christ, it is because it is a part of our doctrine that Jesus Christ was a true prophet of God. And if we deny him, it is the greatness of the Holy Quran which tells us, if you deny Jesus Christ, you also deny Muhammad, peace be upon him. If a Hindu has to become a Muslim, he does not have to sacrifice Krishna on the altar of this new belief. He will be told, well done, Krishna also belongs to God. And if you disbelieve in Krishna from now on, you have not accepted Prophet Muhammad. It has been a fundamental article of Muslim faith that whoever disbelieves or refuses to believe in a single prophet, born in any age, at any place in the world, will not be accepted in Islam. He will also be taken to have refused in the message of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So I believe this is very rational, very sensible, very universal approach. And this approach is seen only in Islam. What I said about Christianity, of the parochial approach, is also true of Buddhists, is also true of Hindus, is also true of Confucianists and so on and so forth. All believe all other prophets to be wrong. And by that belief they prove themselves to be wrong as well. Right? Thank you. Please.
Do you think that the problems of the world today come about as a result of ignorance? For instance, if the world was more aware of what other religions had as beliefs and how they all integrated, they may have a better understanding of the people that perhaps have these conflicts.
I think it's a very complicated question, because if I begin to answer it in full detail, only then you will notice the complicities involved. Ignorance from what? Of what?
Ignorance of the views of other religions and how they see the world.
No, it is not because of that. They are not ignorant of the views of other religions in the sense that they know what the adherents of other religion claim that religion to be. It is that knowledge which is creating problems, not the ignorance. If they had been ignorant of whatever the present Muslim scholars believe Islam to be, they would be much better off. If they were ignorant of what the present scholars of Buddhists believe, they would be much better off. So ignorance would be like a clean slate. But then they should begin their journey in search of knowledge, not from what the people of a religion understand it to be, but what the books and the sources present that religion to be. Only then the ignorance can be changed into knowledge. And this is what the people do not want to do. But the clergy of every religion would not have happened like this. They enjoy the stupidities of different religions, yet they fail to notice the stupidities of their own religion. So this is the unfortunate situation in which we find the world today. Right?
Yes, I agree.
This question has been dealt with me at some length. In the book I have been promising the world many times that it's about to be published. But always one thing or another happens which obstructs the passage of this book from being finalized. But I have told the world today now, before this I mean, that the book is finalized with the grace of Allah, and now the last professional work to delve deep into the things and find out the wrong places which the author and others do not realize they are still there. This is a professional work, and professionals are trained for this job in every place of the world, where even the great masters of English have to go through that channel of such professionals who are extremely knowledgeable in the grammar of the past, the grammar of the present, the usage which has been changed from the past to the present of the definite article the and commas and this and that. So these are minor things which have to be referred to a professional, and which luckily I have got in a lady, Miss Uzma, daughter of late Aftar Ahmed Khan Sahib. She is a top expert in this thing, and also specially gifted by God. Now she has offered her services free of charge to go through this, and amazingly I find in her remarks things which I should have noticed and had not noticed at all. So this is advanced quite some, and I think 3/4 of the book, or more than half, has already been covered. And the way she is doing it so rapidly, we believe that by the end of this month, inshallah, the whole exercise will be over, and then we will give it to the press for the final publication. I repeatedly promise this because in every question answer session, without fail, the questions refer to my answer already given in that book. I am tantalized. I say, oh, I wish it were ready, and then I could offer the book to the questioner and require him to read that passage particularly for finding a full answer. So these questions which you have raised have all been raised in the book and have been answered far more fully than they have been answered here, with necessary references and everything, and rational criticism of my own presentation and how it should be answered rationally without my person being involved. So this is the attitude which I have acquired, and I hope inshallah you will find it of interest when it is published. I hope very much that by the end of this year, before the end of this year, I will be able to present it to the world. Right?
Inshallah, ready for Christmas.
Particularly, you remind me of this.
Why?
Because you always ask questions which have already been answered there. It is a compliment to your mind.
Well, I don't know.
You will know it when you read it. When you read the answers.
That means I'll never come again.
No. After that, new questions will be born.
Inshallah.
Not the ones which have already been touched, Please.
Recently I went to a church with my friend who's a strong Christian, and they had missionaries who worked in Pakistan, and they said that Christianity is spreading fast in Pakistan, and if this is so, what effect do you think this will have on the Ahmadis? the situation there?
You see, we are not concerned at all with any false concept of a religion wiping out another false concept of another religion. One falsehood or another, it makes no difference to us. The only interest we have is to present Christianity of Christ to the world, which completely tallies with our concept of what religion should be. So we are not excited at all. It is so because of the attitude of the mullahs in Pakistan, who are not at all hurt if somebody begins to reject Prophet Muhammad and become a Christian. But they are hurt when an Ahmadi claims that Prophet Muhammad is the true Prophet of God. Because all the rational background of Ahmadi doctrines will be seen favorably then by the Muslims, the general public of Pakistan. But in Christianity they say, we are not hurt at all, it's another religion, let it spread. But when the true version of Islam is presented by Ahmadiyyat, they know that their following will begin to shift places from their platform to the platform of Ahmadiyyat. So this is the body count which hurts. Not the ideology, not the sins, not the crimes. Only more people should remain behind us, And it is this which Ahmadiyyat threatens in Pakistan. If it is permitted to spread, all people will leave the mullahs and come to the platform of Ahmadiyyat. And they know it. That is why they are hurt. And this is exactly what happened during the time of Jesus Christ. Exactly this. What was wrong in his teachings which hurt the elders of Judaism, who turned deadly against him and his blood and the people who followed him? What was there? All he said was, if you are slapped on one cheek, offer the other one. What is wrong? This is again what you find about Ahmadiyyat. There is nothing wrong with Ahmadiyyat, but it's unfortunately for them it's too right, far too right. If Christianity of Jesus Christ had not been obstructed, the values he stood for would have completely run over all the society. And those values must have emerged victorious. This is what they knew. This is what they realized is threatening their society. That is why they joined forces to obstruct this mild message, because that mild message was going to be the victorious message at last. So this is what always happens in case of every beginning of every truth. This is what's happening to Ahmadiyyat there.
Want to have another question?
Yes. I get the impression that Islam's attitude to women is always negative.
That is
that
always.
What is Islam's attitude towards women?
I understood myself. I'm sorry to interrupt because of the time factor.
Yes, I get that.
The fact is, this is a question which is willfully raised by Christian priesthood to embarrass Muslims and to prevent the passage of Islam into Western countries. What the folly they commit is that they compare the concept of treatment of women as found in Islam, first of all wrongly, because the attitude of the present clergy towards women, we can prove it most positively from the Quran, is wrong. So they begin with the wrong beginning. They present an attitude which does not have a representative quality. Secondly, the folly they commit is, even that attitude is not compared with Christian values. While a religion should have been compared with religion. that attitude is compared with the present non-religious values of an atheistic society. This is false. We have no right to compare these two things when they do not belong to the same categories. Because the time is short and only 42, 41, 40 minutes are left, 40 seconds are left, I finish my answer and I hope you can build it yourself further by understanding what I have already said. About my treatment of the Islamic education on women, I have spoken volumes and you can have access to that. There the answer is not negative but a positive answer. Right? Thank you.
Thank you.
I take leave of you. It was a pleasure meeting you and I hope you will find time and health to come again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.